All right, our top focus, a U.S. government has entered shutdown as lawmakers and Donald Trump failed to break a budget impasse during talks that hinged on Democratic demands for health care funding. At midnight Eastern Time on Wednesday, funding for many federal agencies lapsed. The Senate rejected a Republican-led stopgap funding bill intended to extend government operations through the 21st of November. The bill failed to secure the 60 votes needed in the Senate to advance. The vote among Democrats was nearly unanimous against the bill. But why didn't the funding measure pass? The divide is over healthcare, as I mentioned earlier. Democrats insisted that any funding extension include restoration of Affordable Care Act subsidies and the reversal of cuts to Medicaid. Republicans resisted, arguing that the funding bill should stay clean without policy riders or added healthcare mandates. One Democratic proposal, which is a $1.5 trillion alternative, would have allocated about $350 billion to extend expiring Obamacare tax credits and reverse nearly $1 trillion in planned Medicaid cuts. That proposal itself failed in a Senate vote of 47 to 45. Let's just look at what this shutdown means on ground for workers and for the American public. The Congressional Budget Office estimates that up to 750,000 federal workers could be furloughed daily. Lost compensation is projected at around $400 million per day in unpaid wages. But some essential services will continue. Air traffic controllers, TSA screeners, federal law enforcement and critical safety inspections must operate even without funding. Still, unpaid workers and furloughed staff may strain these operations over time, leading to delays, cancellations or safety bottlenecks in aviation. Permits, regulatory oversight and more. The Federal Aviation Administration, the FAA, that is, would furlough over 11,000 employees, about one quarter of its workforce, even as 13,000 plus air traffic controllers are required to work without pay. The TSA may see disruptions. Around 50,000 of its personnel might continue working, but without compensation, a shutdown could cost the travel industry as much as $1 billion per week in lost revenue. Republicans, including Senate Majority Leader John Thune, blame the Democrats for blocking a clean funding bill. Democrats counter that Republicans refuse to engage on healthcare provisions and that the GOP insists on a take-it-or-leave-it approach. Now, Trump has threatened irreversible cuts to benefits programs if no deal is reached. Labor unions have sued the administration's Office of Management and Budget and Office of Personnel Management, challenging directives to prepare mass layoffs or reduction in force during a shutdown. The unions argue that such threats may violate existing federal law, especially the Anti-Deficiency Act, which bars spending without appropriation. Currently, talks remain stalled. Democrats are unified in their opposition and the Republicans insist on their terms. All right, and for more on this, we're now being joined by Mr. Greg Swenson, founding partner, Brick McAdam, a London-based merchant bank, live from Italy. Thank you so much for joining us on the broadcast.
Great to be here. Thanks.
Mr. Swenson, chaos has gripped the U.S. institutions. How do you think the shutdown will impact jobs and services across key U.S. agencies?
Well, I think it will definitely have an effect on the agencies. I don't know that it would be chaos in the institutions. I think the institutions are very well preserved. Mm-hmm. It's more the vast bureaucracy of government employees that will be affected by this. So it definitely will have an effect on the rest of the economy. There's no doubt about that. But the question is how much and how long will this shutdown go on? I personally don't think it will look like 2018 and 19, where it went on for 34 days. Nor do I think it will even go as long as the prior shutdown in 2013, which went 16 days. I think this will be shorter because the Democrats really don't have any cards to play here. I think this will be very damaging to the Democrat brand. So I think this will end quickly.
All right, sir. Now, we were speaking to some analysts yesterday as well, and they did say that beyond the theatrics, it's not in the interest of either side to prolong this for too long because that would make them unpopular. Do you agree with that? Because analysts are citing delays in key economic data. How will this impact rate cut decisions and also the broader assessment of the economy?
Well, of course, yeah. I don't think either party wants it to go on forever. The Republicans actually passed this bill in the House of Representatives. They want the government to stay open, of course. But the Democrats are really being forced to play this hand by the progressive wing of the party. I don't think they care about economic statistics or any damage it will do to the private economy. So again, I think it will turn around. I don't think we'll see the economic impact, which was negligible in 2019. It was about less than 0.5%. It was 0.4% in the first quarter decline. Due to the shutdown, and then a 0.6 decline in the 16 days of 2013. So it's not terribly meaningful, but I also think that it will end quickly because it's very one-sided right now, given the fact that the GOP passed a clean bill.
All right, tariffs now shut down. Where do you see the U.S. economy heading under all of these multiple shifts?
Well, yeah, it's a great question. I think the fourth quarter will really indicate whether the policies have had a great effect. When I say the policies, I don't mean just tariffs and the shutdown, but I think the policies of tax reform and deregulation, which are critical, and most critical perhaps is the liberation of the energy sector in the U.S. So those things combined with the tariff policies that have been put in place, which again I don't think are meaningful in terms of GDP growth disruption. There might be some one-time price adjustments, of course, and some friction in some industries. But generally speaking, the overall 15% tariffs that have been put on some of our trading partners in the U.S. are relatively meaningless compared to the 20% VAT in most European countries, compared with the 11% sales tax we have in my hometown of Chicago, plus the corporate tax rates in the 20s. So it's probably not going to have a meaningful effect, but I do think combined with tax reform and deregulation, you'll see some real significant changes to GDP growth and most importantly, to real wage growth in the fourth quarter.
All right. Mr. Swenson, thank you so much for joining us on Business Insights with your insights on this. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.